Heard the GOAT, Caitlin Clark, come out and say what needed to be said. She stood on business and said, we need to play in games. And y'all that are signed to these other leagues that are compromised, stop playing with the people who are not. Stop playing games. Let's get to it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
So here's what just went down. Kelsey Plum, the first vice president of the WNBA Players Association, just drew a hard line in contract negotiations. But what makes this moment explosive happened just hours before. Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest superstar, said the complete opposite at USA Basketball Camp in North Carolina. The league's most valuable player went public, calling for both sides to find middle ground and stressed that players absolutely have to be on the court this season. Plum fired back, saying the discussions have been deeply frustrating and both sides remain miles apart on a deal. Two superstars, two totally conflicting messages. And here's the kicker. One of them owns part of a rival league.
And Kelsey Plum's response is in this. This is crazy, man. Like, you're signed to Unrivaled. You got equity in Unrivaled. Like, y'all are somewhat compromised on the situation to a degree, even if you're it's just weird, man. It's a little weird. Y'all on the board, but y'all got equity in the competitor leagues. It's all a little conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. Here it says, Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark said Friday that while WNBA players will fight for everything we deserve during their current round of collective bargaining agreement negotiations.
Watch that. Clark wasn't just shooting from the hip here. At Duke University on January 10th, 2025, she made it crystal clear that fans are hungry for the product on the court and both sides have to bend if they want a deal. This wasn't some throwaway line during a casual interview. This was the league's crown jewel, the player who delivered 3.2 million viewers to WNBA broadcasts last season, going public to pressure her own union into making something happen. She specifically warned that players are hitting crunch time in these negotiations. That's diplomatic speak for we're about to run out of runway and this needs to get done now. Now here's where this gets messy. The WNBA and Players Union already pushed back their original deadline once, extending it to January 19th. That gave them an extra 6 weeks beyond the December cutoff they initially set. They've already burned through 3 weeks of that extension, and based on what Plum is saying, they're still nowhere close to shaking hands. That's concerning when you've already used up half your buffer time after missing the first deadline completely.
CBA agreed to a second extension of the current CBA through January 9th, 2026, as both sides continue to work toward a new deal. But questions persist on whether both sides will come to an agreement by then, or even whether a work stoppage could be on the horizon. Now, this is what Kelsey Plum had to say. Kelsey Plum, first vice president of the WNBPA, said at Camp Friday that the talks have been a little disheartening. Just the frustration in the
league just put forward their latest offer with a maximum salary for 2026 starting at a guaranteed $1 million floor. When you factor in projected revenue sharing, elite players could pull in over $1.2 million annually. The salary cap would rocket up to $5 million in 2026, then keep climbing each year tied to revenue performance. Looking at the numbers, that's a massive leap forward. Right now, the max salary sits at $2041, $9,084. We're looking at more than quadrupling what top players can earn. But here's what the union is demanding instead. Complete overhaul of how salaries work across the board, brand new revenue sharing framework, mandatory standards for team facilities and staffing levels, plus enhanced benefits packages. Those final demands are apparently where everything keeps breaking down. The league's willing to hand out $1 million paychecks, but players would have to surrender some of their current housing stipends and vehicle allowances to make the math work. The union refuses to swap one benefit for another. They want the whole package.
Among the players' priorities are transforming the league's salary structure and revenue sharing system, introducing standards for team facilities and staffing, and garnering more robust benefits. The league has said it wants to substantially increase players' salary and other cost commitments while also incentivizing owners to continue to invest in operating the business and building sustained profitability. The most recently reported league proposal included a max.
This is exactly where Caitlin Clark splits from the union's game plan. She's not sitting on the negotiating committee. Her teammates Lexi Hull, Lexi Brown, and Aaliyah Boston handle the Fever's union player representation. Brianna Stewart serves as the union treasurer. Clark gets briefed by them on what's happening, but she's not in the room calling the shots. That separation gives her the freedom to speak truths that others won't touch. There are battles we should go to war over, and there are areas where we can find middle ground. Listen to how she positioned it. She said players will absolutely fight for everything they've earned and deserve, but both sides have to seek compromise somewhere. That's not caving or showing weakness. That's thinking strategically about the bigger picture. She's acknowledging that if you demand the moon without any flexibility, you might end up with absolutely nothing. And nothing means no season at all. No season means no games. No games means no spotlight. No spotlight means all the momentum from 2024 just evaporates.
Clark. That's what that line should have said. They are looking to capitalize off of Caitlin Clark, because if there was no Caitlin Clark in this league, they would have already agreed on a deal. Trust and believe they wouldn't be doing all this hard negotiating and this and that if there was no Caitlin Clark that came in this league and brought the numbers, brought the viewership, brought everything. Simple as that. Simple as that. Here it says, what I'm proud of is that we play with a group of women that are united and we're standing on something, Plum said. Chicago Sky All-Star Angel Reese echoed that sentiment. I think everybody's really intentional about what we want. I think the players in WNBPA have done a great job making sure.
Here's what Clark understands.
Clark sees something that others are apparently missing completely. The WNBA just delivered its greatest year ever, and that happened because of her impact. Attendance at Fever games doubled overnight. The league smashed viewership records left and right. Merchandise flew off the shelf. Corporate sponsors started lining up around the block. This wasn't some slow burn, gradual improvement over time. This was the Caitlin Clark explosion, and everybody in the basketball world knows it. The reporting even confirms this reality. They mentioned the league wants to capitalize on the WNBA's tremendous growth over recent years, but what they really mean is capitalize on what Clark delivered to the league throughout 2024. That kind of cultural moment doesn't last forever though. If there's no 2025 season, all those casual fans who just discovered the WNBA will find something else to watch. They'll move on and forget. The momentum dies completely, and here's the harsh reality nobody wants to admit. Most of these players will never see another opportunity remotely like this one. This is their shot to lock in life-changing money, and Clark is warning them, don't destroy it by refusing to bend at all. But Kelsey Plum isn't buying that message. She went on record saying players are completely united in taking a stand on their principles. Angel Reese backed that up, emphasizing that everyone's really deliberate about what they want, and players are sticking together. That's textbook union solidarity messaging. That's the kind of language you hear when people are digging in for a fight.
You hear right before a strike.
The 2024 #1 pick in women's basketball sensation has called this the biggest moment the WNBA has seen, making it all the more important that we find a way to play this next season. A work stoppage could emerge if the owners opt to lock out the players or the players opt to strike. I think there are different things that we can find ways to say no. We certainly deserve that, and we're not going to compromise on that. And there are other things we can probably compromise on. You want to understand both sides and be respectful of both sides, but at the end of the day, come to a compromise. Caitlin Clark is the mature one in this situation.
Now let's talk about the massive elephant in the room that nobody wants to address directly. Kelsey Plum is a co-founder of Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league that's launching in Miami this month. She owns equity in that league. She signed a multi-million-dollar contract with Unrivaled. She literally sits on their board of directors. So when WNBA negotiations keep dragging on, and the threat of no 2025 season becomes increasingly real, what's the logical outcome? Players will need somewhere to showcase their talents, and magically Unrivaled is positioned perfectly as the alternative option. This is exactly what people mean when they talk about conflicts of interest. Plum is supposedly negotiating on behalf of 44 WNBA players, but she personally wins if those negotiations completely fall apart and players desperately need alternative leagues to join. She's not flying solo on this either. Brianna Stewart, the union treasurer who's actually sitting in the negotiating room making decisions, is also a co-founder of Unrivaled with significant equity in the league. Nafisa Collier has the exact same setup. These are the women leading the union strategy, and they all have major financial investments in a direct competitor to the WNBA. Caitlin Clark doesn't have that same conflict clouding her judgment. She's not signed with Unrivaled, she's not locked into Athletes Unlimited, or any other alternative league for that matter. Her entire value and earning potential is tied directly to WNBA success. If the WNBA doesn't play in 2025, she loses a full year of her prime earning window. She can't just slide over to another league where she's already locked up a guaranteed payday. That's exactly why her perspective is fundamentally different from the union leadership. She needs the WNBA to thrive and succeed. No other options exist for her.
From Caitlin Clark at this point in time. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. This is Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel.
So here's the current state of play heading into crunch time. The hard deadline is January 19th, 2025. That's less than 2 weeks away, but negotiations actually need to wrap up well before that date to give teams enough runway to prepare for the season launch. Training camps historically begin in April. Free agency typically kicks off in February. If there's no handshake deal by late January or early February, the entire 2025 season enters serious jeopardy territory. And based on current reporting, the two sides remain significantly apart according to the union's own leadership statements. Caitlin Clark is going public with calls for both sides to compromise and find common ground. She's emphasizing that this represents the biggest moment in WNBA history, and it's absolutely critical that they figure out how to get players on the court this season. She's openly acknowledging that a complete work stoppage could definitely happen if owners decide to lock out players or if players choose to strike, and she's actively working to prevent that nuclear outcome from happening. She's stepping up as the mature voice in these discussions. Kelsey Plum is choosing the completely opposite approach and strategy. She keeps highlighting how frustrating and disappointing negotiations have been and how much distance still exists between the two sides. She's building momentum among players around the concept that they're unified and standing firm on their core principles. That's the rhetoric you hear when people are gearing up for an all-out war, not when they're preparing to find middle ground and make a deal.